Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of New Police Story, a Hong Kong action flick from 2004 that was directed by Benny Chan and stars Jackie Chan, Nicholas Tse, Daniel Wu, Andy On, and others. Now when I first saw this movie back in the day, I was just starting my deep dive into Hong Kong cinema, and that was during the early to mid 2000s. So I had this kind of weird experience of exploring the newer stuff along with the older stuff at the same time. And that may be one reason why I have a generally positive view of Hong Kong movies from the late 90s and 2000s, because those titles were included in my massive exploration of the entire industry. But after a recent rewatch, I still think that this fifth entry into the Police Story franchise holds up. So Jackie Chan plays a cop, of course, whose colleagues are being targeted for slaughter by a gang of adrenaline junkie bank robbers. And Chan eventually teams up with Nicholas Tse's character to bring these bad guys to justice. Now, the opening half hour of New Police Story, pretty violent and surprisingly bleak, actually. I was quite surprised the first time I watched it, especially coming off of First Strike, which had a definitively cheesier feel to it. Now, in this review, I am intentionally providing a vague plot synopsis for that reason. So, if you have not seen this movie before, I would recommend going into it as blind as possible. This installment is more serious, and it feels a bit closer to the original trilogy in spirit. This also relies on character development than most actioners do, and it is darker than a good chunk of Chan's filmography. I do like the comeback story element in this, and I was able to root for the protagonist after he hits rock bottom. It's actually one of the more engaging conflicts of this entire franchise, in my opinion. Of course, Benny Chan likes to infuse some melodrama at times, which does go maybe a bit too far in places, but his approach to the movie works. Jackie's performance is legitimately good. He plays, the main character, and not an easy role to take, but he is convincing. And I think this is one of the better performances of his career, in my opinion. Nicholas Tse is fun to watch as like the sidekick. He brings a playful energy that is much appreciated. And I do like Daniel Wu as an actor because of his screen presence. There's just something about him. He's just fun to watch on screen. He plays a violent nutcase in this one who has daddy issues. And I really like how he taunts the protagonists. Really gets under their skin. And he's actually a formidable villain in some aspects, relying on deception and tactics to gain the upper hand against the cops. And this is one of those movies that made me a fan of Andy On. Again, when I first started exploring Hong Kong cinema. The other film actually was Fatal Contact that came out a few years after this. He has like a real cool vibe to him. He's like a cool dude, and he can definitely sell a fight scene. And then we have Yu Rongguang, who has a limited role, good as always. And then we have some cameos in this movie from Ken Lo, Philip Ng, and Liu Kai-chi. Now, the action in this film is a mix of shootouts and martial arts, as you might expect, and it does not waste time getting started. The opening scene involves Jackie and a hostage taker, but the first set piece occurs about 10 minutes in. It's a nighttime robbery where the bad guys use high-powered weaponry to overwhelm the cops. And then we get one of the highlight scenes about a half an hour in, which is a warehouse scene, where a team of policemen attempt to avoid numerous booby traps that were set up for them in this warehouse. And Jackie also goes toe-to-toe with the main villains this early in the film. And I really like this sequence because it's important for a film like this to establish the antagonist is difficult to take down, and it also gives him a little bit of presence, And I think it's one of the best scenes in the movie, actually. We get a fun little bar fight, little comedy mixed into it. I mentioned this before on this channel, but I really like Nicholas Tse's fighting style. It's kind of like wild and scrappy. He kind of throws his body around, and it's pretty amusing to watch. I like it. And then we have a foot chase set piece that blends into a runaway bus scene. Jackie needs to perform some acrobatics while the vehicle is in motion. It has a few similarities to the bus scene in the first Police Story film. And this results in lots of building damage, broken glass, And I've joked before on this channel and others that Benny Chan has a fondness for broken glass, which becomes even more evident in his later film Invisible Target. And then after a little bomb disposal scene, we got a finale, and we get a rematch between the good guy and the villains, Jackie and Andy On. That fight takes place in a little Lego playland, arguably my favorite scene of the entire film. Nicely choreographed, and Jackie holds his own despite being about 50 years old when filming this. And then we get a rematch against Daniel Wu's character with his game of choice, which you'll see in the film. And I liked the final, I guess, maneuver that Jackie uses in that little showdown. It's pretty neat. I like it. But to be honest, I think the finale could have used a little bit more action in it. Maybe one more phase of, like, shootout. You know, I think the opening, there's like a 3-act structure with the finale. The opening is kind of like in this open area. There's a little bit of shooting involved, but I think they should have extended that a little bit more. And then it rolls into the fight and then the final showdown. So a little bit more action in the finale would have been nice, but it's satisfying enough because you have that rematch structure where Jackie gets to, redeem himself from his failures earlier in the film. Now, in terms of some other criticisms, some of the CGI work early is a little noticeable, or very noticeable. Like the building rappel scene early on, it doesn't look too good now. But there are also lots of practical effects in the film and stunts that overpower that flaw. Like a building rappel scene later in the movie that was, shot in camera and involved some legit stunt work. Another criticism I have is that the police station has terrible security, which is a bit distracting at times during a few scenes. But overall, I don't really mind these problems because the movie's just entertaining to watch. So I do recommend New Police Story quite a bit, actually. I rewatched this installment probably more than most of the other installments in the franchise. So I do enjoy it. Although my recent rewatch of Police Story 3 will have me rewatching that one quite a bit as well. But this is widely available, streaming, and on physical media. So if you're exploring this series, I think this is another installment to look forward to. And as always, I will see you next time.